There's one Phantasy Star game that most people forget about. No, not Phantasy Star Nova. That's one most people don't even know about. Most people are at least aware of Phantasy Star Zero in that, oh yeah, that game exists kind of way. Which is interesting to me because the game is actually good. You see, it wasn't just 2023 where OG real gamers were all demanding a PSO1 style game. Even back in 2006, the fanbase was demanding that SEGA keep the gameplay of the original Phantasy Star Online. So many players were still clamoring for a return to their original PSO formula after Phantasy Star Universe divided the fanbase a bit. SEGA actually caved in and gave the fanbase what they wanted, a Phantasy Star Online Episode 1, Episode 2 style game, albeit a single-player focused version of that. SEGA too had a little fun with the title in PSO, PS0. PSO was of course Phantasy Star Online, and SEGA kept the numbered Phantasy Star titles for single-player story-centric games. So PSO, PS0, take the Phantasy Star Online gameplay and make it a single-player story-driven experience, and you get PS0. I'm already a fan of what you're doing there, SEGA. So I decided to stream it on Twitch the past few days just to take a stroll down memory lane. Surprisingly, many people came in and mentioned not having played this game and having always been curious of it. Some were surprised about how stylized and good the game looked. One even describing it as PSO if it were on the Sega Saturn, which got a little chuckle out of me. I must say I was surprised by how much I was actually enjoying it. I didn't really recall vibing with this game back in 2008, but maybe it was because I wanted, the more multiplayer experience from it. But looking at this game as just a straight fun DS game, yeah, it's actually good. As you hop into Phantasy Star Zero, you'll feel right at home if you've ever played Phantasy Star Online. You have your merchants, your quest counters, your warps, and all the buttons are the same, and you have your palettes with all your attacks, and you have a dodge. Cool. Yeah, we have a dodge now, which is actually a really welcome feature. It actually works well and feels like it should have been there since the beginning. The gameplay loop in Phantasy Star Zero is the PSO you know and love. Warp down to an area, start killing things, pick up anything that falls to the ground, gain some levels, rinse, repeat. If you didn't like Phantasy Star Online, or one of those people that were like, Phantasy Star Online would be good if it had X, Y, or Z, then yeah, this game is not for you. The gameplay loop is the same, the combat's the same, hunting for percentages and good drops the same. Nothing really brand new here. And unlike Phantasy Star Online, the story here actually exists. Yeah, Red Ring Rico vomited off into space from Dark Falls, whatever. This actually has a plot, and characters, and NPCs, and storylines. A plot involving ruins and powers that are housed within, all that fun stuff. Nothing too crazy. But it's just fun to have a Phantasy Star Online game with a plot and growing NPCs and evolving characters and all that. The music takes a bit of a turn here, whereas the original PSO influenced me so much musically with its absolutely fantastic futuristic synths, risers, pads, and more coming all together to create just an absolute masterpiece of futuristic sound design. This one is a little more laid back. The sound design here is more traditional RPG feel. There's nothing that really makes you feel like you're in space or on a grand adventure or anything like that. What is really stand out in this game is the bass design. The bass work in this game is just otherworldly. It reminded me of my youth hearing Yasunori Mitsuda's work of like fretless basses in the 90s, or Jeremy Soul's like really creative bass work in Secret of Evermore. Just these bass lines that you would just never hear in other games. The bass is just all over the place in this game. We're talking chords, arps, rhythmic phrases. It's just driving every element of the song. The bass is definitely the driving force of just about everything in this soundtrack. I wonder what could the reason behind it be. Maybe the sound chip in the DS wasn't really cutting it, and the only good sounds they could get were the bass sounds, and Hideaki Kobayashi just went absolute boss mode on it. Who knows? It's just really weird. And boy, some of the sounds just really aren't cutting it in this game. The explosions, attacks, everything feels really weak or like it's run through bit crushing or a bit reducer. It is hilarious how terrible some of these sounds are. Oh no. Just listen to the dragon's attacks and such. This is just comically bad. It sounds like worse than an SNES to me. I feel like a Game Boy could probably do better than this. Which makes me think that maybe the reasons that we didn't really get a pure atmospheric or bombastic soundtrack could be to the sound capabilities of the DS. Now it may sound like I'm just showering this game with praises, but I can actually see most people getting tired or bored with this game after 6 or so hours, to be honest. The main story will probably take most like 13 or 14 hours, I assume, which is just a tad too long for such a simple game loop like PSO. I think SEGA were really pushing this anime storyline, something that I just don't think works with the Phantasy Star Online formula. I would have preferred quests to be shorter and plot lines to wrap up a little bit quicker to make the simplistic combat, still fun. I'm not really sure if this game just hits the mark. The cutscenes are nice, the visual novel flow is cool, and yeah, altogether it makes for a fun game. But I can see veteran PSO fans just getting burned out as the loot grind rush doesn't really hit fast enough in this game. And I can see newcomer PSO fans being confused at how simplistic everything really is. To me, the game is like a solid 7 or so. I had a lot of fun streaming the game on Twitch and will probably keep going back to it whenever I'm bored and feeling like I need a PSO fix. I just don't think it does enough new to win over new fans or enough right to keep the vet grinders happy. It's just kind of this middle area. Still a fun game, but there is a reason everyone wants PSO Blueburst to be remade and not this. That's a tad harsh. People should talk about this game as it is a good game. I do feel like PSO fans should definitely give this game a shot. Just don't really expect anything groundbreaking and don't really expect it to win over, Phantasy Star Online Blueburst as your favorite Phantasy Star Online game. Go in with that on your mind and accept it for what it is and you'll have a good time. Or if you're really curious about Phantasy Star Zero, just watch me stream it on Twitch, right? But that pretty much wraps it up. It's a single-player PSO style game with a weird soundtrack, very bad sound design, and a interesting plot, I guess. Gameplay loop works. Game works. It's good. Give it a shot.